Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is What If Naruto Build Harem with Kurenai and Ayame Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Day 1, it came faster than anyone could have prepared for. Amidst the sounds of war, clashing of kunai, and screams of death, everyone stopped fighting for but a single moment. When all looked up, the blood in their bodies froze. The skies darkened, the harsh bellows of noise, like righteous thunder, assaulted the very fabric of the heavens. For everyone there, it might as well have been an envoy of the Shinigami to come judge all earth beneath its cruel gaze. That was a day that Uzumaki Naruto, Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Yoko, former dead last of the Konohagakure no Sato Academy, and dreamer of the title of Hokage, saw when he had just finished defeating Sabaku no Gaara. In the skies, he heard the harsh drums of storms. In the skies, he saw the clouds part like a grand reception of a divine deity. In the skies, he saw a giant rock from beyond the realms of his world come crashing down upon not just Konoha, but also every other shinobi that laid within her walls. What Naruto remembered of that time was that Gaara and his siblings had retreated and someone had saved him. He did not know who since he had been grabbed in a hurry, but, as the descending rock from outside the realm of this earth fell further and further to the ground, a feeling deep within his gut made the young genin wonder about one of Jiraiya's lesson before the damn sage had pushed him off that cliff. If death was going to come for you the next day, how would you live for now? The great rock crashed into the ground and what followed after was an earthquake the likes that Naruto had never seen. The sky exploded with hot fire as thousands of flaming stones crashed from Konoha to Iwa. Trees were pulled from the ground like fickle grass while dust and wind collided with Naruto's body. Again, he did not remember much. The adrenaline from his body was leaving him and his consciousness was failing him. What he heard before he passed out was the sounds of screaming from the person who had been carrying him. Day 2, it was not much better. Naruto woke up, not in the hospital, but underneath a pile of fallen trees which had, thankfully, not crushed him beneath their weight. His entire body still hurt and he could see neither left from right nor up from down. Underneath those trees, he stayed, his body too hurt for him to even scream for help, and his wounds too great to even save himself. There, he passed out again. Day 3 was a little better. His body still hurt, but he had begun feeling a bit better. Naruto had figured this to be normal since had always healed quickly. Why would now be any different? Of course, it was still dark outside. His little shelter of fallen trees obviously told him that much. Hey, who would have thought that Iruka's stupid survival lessons would actually come back to haunt him? Naruto's stomach rumbled. He was hungry. He couldn't remember the last time he had eaten a proper meal. He wondered what was going on outside. The blonde groaned as he tried to move his arms and legs, but they stubbornly refused to listen to him. He was still stuck and he was still in a lot of pain. Damn. Perhaps he would have to give himself a reminder that releasing that much chakra at once was not a good thing. Once he saw that he was still incapable of doing something, the blonde fell back asleep again. Day 4 was much better than day 3. Oh sure, Naruto couldn't move too much, but at least his body had recovered enough that he could at least get to a soldier pill. He always hated the damn things. They tasted like a mix between a veggie roll and a sour tart. It also wasn't exactly defined as a food supplement, but it gave his teeth something to chew on and his throat something to swallow. Maybe this would help him recover faster. Shouldn't more chakra flow mean more healing? As Naruto laid in his little shelter, the cold, dusty air blasting outside like a harsh tornado, he wondered about Kakashi, Sakura, and, yes, even Sasuke. He wondered if they were alright. Had they seen and heard the large stone fall as well? Day 5, Naruto found a problem that no amount of soldier pills could fix. He was getting thirsty, and he had to really use the bathroom. Unfortunately, the scope that he could move his body was very small. It was better compared to yesterday, but not the best right now. How he wished he could scratch his nose or any other part of his body that irritated him. Unfortunately, he couldn't do anything about any of those things. Instead, the only thing he could do was feel heavy wind smack against his face, carrying with it dust, grass, and small stones. Of course, Naruto had to let those things hit him as well. What could he do when he couldn't even move? As gross as it might sound, Naruto was actually wondering if he could drink his own piss just to not be thirsty anymore. Yup, that would definitely be something to never tell anyone else as long as he lived. Later that night, Naruto groaned as he opened his eyes when something smacked against his forehead. He slowly opened his eyes and realized he had fallen asleep again. His throat was beginning to hurt. As Naruto began contemplating his situation more, another smack landed on his head. "What the?" he said. He looked up. It was dark outside. Well, to be fair, he couldn't tell if it was light or dark for the past couple of days. There was too much fallen debris to tell otherwise. However, he noticed that the smacks against his head were wet. His eyes brightened. One smack came. Then another. Then another. And another. And another. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki's eyes brightened when he heard the blessed sound of heavy rain. Soon hundreds upon hundreds of water droplets fell through the trees. Oh man, Naruto would have to build a wooden statue to whatever god had his back at the moment. A grunt here, a sharp stab of pain there, and Naruto finally got a comfortable spot. He opened his mouth, with pain, and blissfully swallowed the rainwater that had been given to him. He admitted that it started kind of odd, but he wasn't about to look a gift horse in the mouth with survival as his main concern. Day 6. This was the worst day because Naruto woke up and realized he didn't have to use the bathroom anymore. Yup. Definitely not telling anyone about this. Ever. Day 7. Naruto found himself facing another problem. Namely, he found the problem to be his growing stomach. Granted though, it had been doing this ever since day 1 of his time here, but now it was really beginning to get to him. He would have liked to rub his stomach in some vain effort to console it that he would take care of its concerns soon, but kinda needed moving arms to do that. If the Kyuubi Jinchuriki had to say one thing about being trapped like this, along with being hungry, then it was the sound of hearing potential food sources skittering over the fallen trees. Still, at least he could move his body enough to scratch an itch that had been bothering him. His pants had also dried up from the time he had relieved himself. It was a pain to even think about. Day 8. Naruto was woken not by the sound of harsh winds and arid dust, but to the sounds of plentiful rainfall. Happy to have some water, he tried to maneuver as best he could to catch anything, but as a raindrop fell past him, he heard the ground hiss next to him. His eyes turned and he stiffened when he saw the water, like pure acid, melting the ground next to him. Another drop fell. This time it landed on his orange jacket. Naruto shivered when he saw the liquid slowly eat away at his clothing. Frantic, and wrought with pain, Naruto groaned as he tried to move himself to a place that had more shelter. More and more raindrops fell down to the spot where he had laid previous as he watched the ground melt away from each strike of sky water that struck it. The blonde closed his eyes and prayed to whatever gods were listening that this rainfall would stop soon. Day 9, the rain had stopped by the middle of the day. Naruto breathed a sigh of relief that he had kept both himself and his clothes from turning into melted pork bones for a bowl of soup. Unfortunately, the covering of trees that had been his shelter had weakened a little. Naruto could see just a bit of the outside, but it was no different. He could not see hide nor ray of the sun. All that covered the sky was wind filled with dust. Naruto was still hungry. Day 10, let Naruto go out on record to say that he was pretty damn hungry. He hadn't eaten for 10 days and the healing of his body was already taking more energy than even he wanted it to. So, with that being the case, please don't judge him when he crunched the 3 or 4 crickets that had wandered near him. Yup. This was also another secret to never tell anyone. Oh yeah, And don't judge him for the ants either. They shouldn't have crawled on him, damn it. Slowly, between eating insects, pissing his pants, and testing whether water was safe to drink or not, Naruto was not sure what day he was on after day 10. He had kind of lost count. Hell, he wondered how many weeks had passed. However, he could finally move his arms and legs. He tried to lean up and, though sore, succeeded. Finally, I hope I never see another insect for the rest of my life, Dadbao. Probably gonna have to avoid Shino too, the young genin said. Naruto maneuvered his body so that he was sat comfortably with his folded legs. Now then, what should I do? I don't know what's going on outside. I also don't know where anyone else is. Kakashi-sensei would say that I need some kind of plan. Well, I can do that. I hope, the blonde thought. Taking a simple stick from one of the trees, Naruto began trying to map and plan as best he could. It made his head hurt, but there was no getting around it. This also was his only shelter. Let's see, if I'm here after that guy or whatever carried me, then maybe I was there. If I was there, then the village should be this way, I think. Arg, why me? Naruto exclaimed as he drew in the dirt with as much light as he could find. He definitely couldn't stay here. The falling acid was starting to eat away at his cover. There would really be no difference between him and some melted pork bones if he stayed. Alright, I'll rest the night here one more time, then I'll make my way out first thing in the morning. I hope everyone's alright, Naruto said before he noticed he was talking to himself. Oh god, he was going insane. When the next day came, Naruto tested his body by raising one leg and then raising the other. He did this a couple of times and both seemed to work just fine. There was still some lingering stiffness and pain in them both, but nowhere near as unbearable as last week. He was at least sure he could make it back to Konoha with these and then find anyone else. Hopefully, he could meet up with Sakura or Kakashi. Hell, at this point he'd even take Sasuke of all people. Anyway, what came next was Naruto's test of his arms. He waved them up and down while he flexed his fingers back and forth. He groaned as bones snapped and cracked against each other. His arms felt heavy and his fingers felt tense, but he could still move them. Yosh, let's try and get back to the village. Naruto thought. Kami, he couldn't wait to go home, take a shower, and heat up a nice cup of ramen. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki decided to wait for a few hours to let the dusty wind settle down. He was already lost and he didn't feel the need to get more lost. While he waited, Naruto decided that he should practice some of that forward-thinking stuff Kakashi always lectured him about. In the event that he got lost, then he would have to make plans to find another means of shelter. He doubted there would be another stack of logs for him to hide in. So, Naruto spent the next 3 hours coming up with contingency plans. Once he figured he had enough of them, he rolled over and crawled out from beneath the logs that had been his home for the past week or so. Harsh winds blew against his face as he crawled, but he figured they weren't going to get much better than now. Naruto stood to his feet and peered out into the world. When he did, his eyes widened. It was worse than even he had assumed. All of the trees had been toppled over and the leaves had died and withered away on the ground. There was nothing but a barren wasteland for miles covered by dust, dirt, and broken trees. There was just nothing. The young blonde shook his head and decided to scan his surroundings. As he had expected, he didn't know where he was. He couldn't see a sign of the village or any other living soul. Thankfully, he had planned for this. When he turned back to his home, he noticed that indeed the acid rain had been eating the bark. He couldn't stay here. If he did, then he all but bet that he wouldn't have a shelter by tomorrow morning. Which way should I go? He asked himself. What was the right or wrong answer here? Oh well, perhaps he should just follow the map he made in the sand a few days ago. Either way, he could only pray that he had some good luck for once in his life. This would have been the perfect time for him to create some shadow clones and send them out to find the village, but he still felt the effects of chakra exhaustion. He doubted he'd be using jutsu anytime soon. Oh well, I guess I'll go this way, Naruto said as he headed towards the east of his log home. He was already praying that he made the right choice. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki continued in his path. The dust and sand irritated his feet and he covered his eyes from the turbulent winds rushing against his face. The longer he walked, the longer he wondered if he was the only person left in existence. He spotted fallen kunai, broken corpses stripped of their skin and flesh, and torn shinobi attire representing the battle that had taken place about a week ago. While Naruto journeyed in the direction he thought best, a sudden rumble thundered through the sky above him. He looked up at the smoke and dust-ridden dark yellow skies. Lightning pushed through each cloud and he knew what was coming. More acid rain would be falling. This time, there would be no fallen trees to protect him. He was also sure that he was too far away to run back to his shelter, not that he could even find it if he tried. Fortunately, luck seemed to be with the young Uzumaki that day. As the sounds of thunder and flashes of lightning rolled across the open sky, he could have sworn he saw something large in the distance. He didn't know what exactly since the dust was pushing against his face, but as he drew closer and closer his eyes grew wider and wider. Before him, a massive wall made of great stone appeared in front of him. So tall was it that, from where he stood, it might have reached up to the very heavens if it could. As Naruto touched the wall, he gasped. Relief filled his mind and hope filled his heart. He recognized the wall as a part of the Konoha walls which guarded the village. While he wasn't inside the village yet, he had still managed to make it before the rain fell. With any luck, he could at least tell Sakura and Kakashi, and maybe even Sasuke, what had happened to him. Then they could tell him what the hell had happened during his time away. With renewed vigor in his step, Naruto limped to the front gates of Konoha while he used the walls for support. He was still hurt after all. Yet, in all his joy perhaps Naruto should have wondered why it was so quiet. Whether for 10 minutes or 30, the young genin finally made it to the front of the village and what he saw made him shiver. The giant gates which guarded his home, one of them wore kunai and shuriken like a young child wears dirt from hours of playing. The other was torn off its hinges. Due to the wind, it made a loud, almost creepy and unsettling, creaking noise. It actually looked like it would fall over if given enough time. Bodies littered the ground as did an assortment of shinobi tools. The only way Naruto was able to identify anything was by the clothes which hung to the bones of their slowly being engulfed by the sand. Konoha shinobi, Suna shinobi, Oto shinobi, and even some others from other nations were there. Yet, what worried Naruto now was that there was not a single official monitoring the gate or even helping survivors. There was just no one. No one except him. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki moved through the corpses, shivering when he accidentally stepped on and snapped some brittle bones. He tried to move through them all carefully so as not to disrespect those who had fallen, but dare he say the only thing being disrespected were the dogs that didn't get to this free buffet of skeletons. With trepidation, Naruto walked past the gates of Konoha. When he stepped inside, he honestly wondered if being outside would have been preferable. Every time he tried to find some hint of optimism in his situation, it felt like some god or divine deity was making fun of him and crushing his naive, mortal thought processes. Konoha, his home and the place where he dreamt of becoming Hokage, seemed as if the very essence of life had perished within it. Broken shops and stalls, cracked windows and fallen bottles littered the left side of the street. Men, women, and children, each killed in some horrific manner which made Naruto glad he wasn't there to witness their demise littered the right. It all almost made the young man drop to his knees. What happened? Naruto thought to himself as he traversed what was once his home. While the genin walked through the streets, he took notice of the way some houses seemed to have crashed down into others. It was almost like some crazy, natural disaster had struck the place while he was gone. Was it that rain stuff from before? The last Uzumaki asked. Naruto remembered what it had done to some of the logs that had been his home last week. He supposed it wasn't impossible for that to happen to the rest of these structures. Unfortunately, Naruto noticed that the wind seemed to pick up. It actually blew with such ferocity that he had a bit of trouble standing against it. Then he heard the hissing of the ground next to him. When he looked down, all he noticed was a smoking hole in the street. It was the size of a drop of rain. Kuso. It's gonna start raining again, he exclaimed to himself. Naruto picked up his pace to get to his home faster, but he absently wondered what had become of his apartment if this was what happened to the rest of the village. As he ran, he desperately tried not to look at the bodies of people lining up the streets. He was sure he'd vomit otherwise. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki arrived at his apartment complex. He could tell by the open deck that he stood on as a child. The rain was beginning to come down a little harder and the ground began hissing and smoking just like the time he was trapped beneath those logs. He made it. Ow. He grimaced. That said, his joy aside, Naruto found himself still anxious. Parts of his complex seemed destroyed. One tenant's bedroom crashed down into another's bathroom. A pile of bones laid in a corner and Naruto wished not to know how those came to be. Still, it looked like his part of the building was still standing for the moment. As Naruto walked up the stairs, he shivered when he felt the metal stairs creak and lean to the side. It was almost as if to say that they couldn't support his weight and would topple down to the ground. Thankfully, they held and he made it to his floor. He then limped his way to his door. As the Kyuubi Jinchuriki expected, he didn't have to worry about fishing out his keys. His door was busted down with more kunai and shuriken lined against its wooden frame. By the time he got through the door, the rain, thunder, and lightning were in full swing. Naruto panted and fell to his knees. The young boy was exhausted. His body ached from his inflicted wounds. On top of his fallen door, he caught his breath for about 2 or 3 minutes. The sounds of turbulent weather outside his home constantly assaulted his ears. When the Kyuubi Jinchuriki felt he had rested enough, he pulled himself to his feet with the help of his apartment wall. As he did so, his eyes stared out into the village. He hopelessly watched as more rain fell down, striking the barren ground and lifeless rooftops of former homes. Smoke expelled from the ground. It was melting once again just as Naruto feared. Sakura, Kakashi-sensei, Tem, I hope you guys are alright, Naruto thought. The boy stretched his sore arms. The harsh winds from outside blew an eerie howl in front of his open doorway. Naruto feared the wind would blow the rain into his house. So, he picked the kunai and shuriken off his door and slowly proceeded to pick it up. This wasn't an easy task, the genin knew his body hadn't fully healed yet. The door also wasn't very light. Nevertheless, it wasn't like he was as helpless as before. He trained for many hours of his life. He could lift a simple door. It took some work, but Naruto finally got the door back in place. Of course, it didn't stay there perfectly. In fact, it didn't close the opening completely. The door had been blown off its hinges, so he placed it sideways and hoped he could find some drapes to fill up the opening parts. Wait, that might work. Naruto suddenly thought as he got a smile on his face. He picked up some of the fallen kunai and grabbed the tablecloth that he used for his table. He placed the cloth over the door and stabbed the ends into the wall with the kunai from earlier. It was shoddy work, and the blonde worried when he saw the wind blow against the cloth. However, the door and the cloth remained firm and showed no signs of failing. Naruto exhaled tiredly before he surveyed his surroundings. Perhaps it was because he was thankful to get away from the outside, but he had not fully acknowledged his return until now. His house was in shambles. Couches and chairs were thrown everywhere. His refrigerator was open, all of the food inside it gone. Hell, his home looked like a tornado had blown right through it. Granted, Naruto wasn't the cleanest individual, but even he didn't think he was this bad. Another sigh, Naruto walked into his apartment and flicked on the light switch. Nothing. Was the blonde expecting different? No, not really. The young Uzumaki then walked over to his kitchen sink. He turned the knobs and, to his surprise, the sound of water graced his ears. Well, at least that works. Don't know for how long though, he thought. At that moment, Naruto didn't care if faucet water counted as drinking water or not. All he knew was that he had water and he was thirsty. He dipped his head beneath the faucet mouth and drank the flowing water that he used to clean his dishes. It sure as hell wasn't the best tasting water, but it filled Naruto's throat all the same. At this point, this was the single greatest blessing he had all day. With his thirst quenched, Naruto stared at his faucet. In a rare moment of forward thinking, the blonde frowned. His water worked for now, but there was no guarantee it would work later. Hell, he couldn't even be sure it was going to work 10, 30, or even 50 minutes from now. Plus, he had no food. Even all his precious ramen had been taken. If someone was alive, he was going to make them rue the day they touched Uzumaki Naruto's ramen. That vow aside, Naruto looked in his cabinets and cupboards. Thankfully, the day before his duel with Neji during the Chunin exams, he had gone shopping. Sure, all of his food was gone, most likely raided during the Sunaoto invasion of Konoha, but he still had a few gallons of jugs that housed some inconsequential things. He grabbed the jugs and dumped the contents. They weren't water, so he figured he wouldn't need them now. He cleaned them as thoroughly as he could so no lasting fluids remained. Once that was done, Naruto spent the better part of an hour filling up to 30 jugs with water from his faucet. He wished he could keep them cold, but the refrigerator was broken and the power was out. Lukewarm, it was then. Once the 30 jugs were full, Naruto chuckled. He then organized the jugs of water into categories. 5 jugs would go to bathing water. Another 5 would be drinking water. Another 5 would be for cooking water. The last 3 would be for whatever else he needed. Hopefully, that lasted him for a little while until he managed to find some help. Told you that D in survival training wasn't fair, Iruka-sensei. Naruto mentally congratulated himself. However, when the thought of Iruka entered his mind, the smile dropped from Naruto's face. Back when everything was normal, he would have hated seeing Iruka coming in the distance just to scold him. Now, he'd gladly let himself get pulled by the ear if it meant seeing the Chunin who gave him his first headband again. Unfortunately, Naruto couldn't dwell on those thoughts for long. He felt the harsh wind outside his windows and he realized that he had no windows. They must have been blown off when the giant rock crashed into the earth. Now, they couldn't stop the rough winds and rain from blowing into his house. Just great, Naruto thought to himself. The genin picked up his jugs of water and placed them in the cabinets below his sink. He walked through his apartment. Thankfully, it seemed like nothing else was damaged. Whoever ransacked his home, they were quick to take what they felt was important and left. Naruto entered his bathroom and ripped off the shower curtains. No real use in keeping them up now, if all he had for water was in jugs. He grabbed some more rusty kunai and shuriken. The boy stood before the open window frames in his living room, kitchen and blocked them with the shower curtains. There, that should hold for now, Naruto said to himself as he watched the curtains flutter in weird ways from the rushing winds. All he hoped was that the wind didn't blow the rain onto the curtains. Now, he couldn't be certain, but he was pretty sure his shower curtains weren't acid-proof. Tired and hungry, Naruto made his way into his bedroom. He unlocked the door and stepped inside. So far, everything looked normal. Nothing appeared damaged. A few things fell over in the earthquake, but everything was still functional as far as he could see. Naruto looked at his TV. Okay, well, everything was functional that wasn't electronic. After he assessed his room for any potential threats, Naruto walked back to his bathroom. He opened his medicine cabinet and, though he was no medic, he hoped he could at least clean some of his wounds and disinfect them. While he healed fast, he'd rather not get sick. Naruto grabbed some disinfectant spray and some cotton swabs with medicinal alcohol. He then headed back to his room and took off his clothes. As a man, Naruto tried not to let the stinging sensation of the spray and alcohol bother him too much. He cleaned the wounds that he could find and wiped himself off with a towel that, luckily, he cleaned a few days ago. The genin didn't know where he threw the towel after he was done. All he knew was that he fell asleep on his bed, the sounds of the rain and wind lulling him to sleep. Crash. Naruto was startled awake by something loud. Worried, he slowly looked out the window and gasped when he saw one of the large buildings give way and fall over. He watched in shock as its melted wood sent it bashing into other buildings. A loud, resounding boom shook the ground as dust picked up over the area where the structure had fallen. Wood exploded everywhere as more rain continued to fall. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki swallowed the lump in his throat. If anyone was alive, he really hoped they weren't over there. Hesitantly, Naruto fell back asleep for a few more hours. Those hours were blissful for him. At least he wasn't under a group of fallen trees anymore. When the blonde woke up, he noticed it had stopped raining. There was still the sound of harsh wind battering his apartment windows, but the acid rain must have stopped. Cautiously, Naruto slipped out of bed and walked over his apartment's back deck. He surveyed the damage to the roof and it looked like the acid rain hadn't melted through it, yet. At the very least, Naruto hoped that the apartment's rooftop would hold until he found someplace else to live. With that address, Naruto now focused his mind on another task. I really need something to eat, he thought as he made his way back to the kitchen. He poured himself a few cups of water and downed them, hoping that the water would fill him up for now. Not the best breakfast he'd ever had, but the young man wasn't in the proper position to complain. With his breakfast finished, Naruto tested his body. He was still sore and he felt a little weak, but he wasn't helpless. Perhaps he could venture outside and look for supplies. It was better than doing nothing. If he could help it, Uzumaki Naruto was not about to feast on ants again. Still, where would be a good place to start? Kakashi always told him he never thought anything through and that he ought to change that. Something builds maturity and all that. That said, Naruto already knew the danger of going outside, so perhaps a little forethought wouldn't be so bad. The young blonde walked back into his bedroom and came back with a notepad and a pen. Okay, first things first, I guess I should find food. That's important. Maybe a map too, so I don't get lost. I used to know this whole place well when I pranked people, but I don't know what's changed around here. Maybe some cleaner water if I can find it. Lastly, help anyone in the village who's still alive, Naruto thought as he wrote down on his notepad. It wasn't the most developed plan in the world, but it was good enough for Naruto at least. So, with his notes jotted down, the Kyuubi Jinchuriki wore some heavy clothes and picked up his goggles. Never did he think he would put these on again after he graduated from the academy. Unfortunately, he had to tie his headband someplace else since having both on his head at the same time was way too much. So he decided to tie it around his waist. That left his head free for his goggles. Once his attire was sorted, Naruto grabbed 3 backpacks. He had carried that many before in his life and he figured he could do it now despite how weak he felt. He hoped he could make it to a convenience store. All the food there should still be packaged. He only hoped it hadn't gone bad from the week he'd been gone. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki also prepared weapons. Though he was sure no one from his own village would attack him, he did have some reservations. Plus, he figured if anyone from the invading forces was still around then he could take them out as well, or at the very least defend himself. Yosh, let's do this, the young man said. He pulled the shower curtains from his window and slipped outside. The wind and dust blasted in his face, but the goggles helped against them. He jumped on top of the roof and stared out into the desolate wasteland that had been his home. Uzumaki Naruto began his search. Naruto groaned as the rough winds rebuffed his advances. The storms had grown more turbulent since he'd been asleep. He constantly wiped his goggles from the dust and dirt that clung to them. When he looked up at the sky, he couldn't even see the sun or moon. All around him was brown, acid-filled skin with bolts of lightning mixed into the clouds. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki's mission for today was simple. Find food, find a map, help survivors. Those were his goals. He prayed he would not stray from them. He just hoped that he wasn't the only one who walked amongst the bones of the deceased. Each snap caused by Naruto's steps made his throat dry. He knew not if they were enemy, ally, or civilian, but he tried to tread carefully. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki didn't go too far from his home. If it started to rain, then he could at least run back to his shelter. He decided to take the couple of buildings he saw still standing across from his apartment complex. With any luck, they wouldn't collapse on him. Through the dusty winds, Naruto grabbed one of the door handles and twisted it. Locked, he grumbled. He decided to try his luck. He backed on the door. Oi, anyone in there? He called out. The blonde received nothing in reply. He looked left. He looked right. He saw no one coming or going. So he grabbed a kunai and broke the doorknob. The wind blasted the door open and Naruto stepped inside. The door made an ominous creak. Once he was inside, Naruto grabbed a nearby coat rack. He closed the door and shoved the rack against the wall to keep the wind from opening it again. He then turned his attention back to the interior of the house. Naruto wouldn't deny it. This house looked worse than his. Furniture had been tossed every other way. Broken picture frames and living ornaments were laid out across the floor. Curtains were thrown from one room to the next. For a time, Naruto wondered if this was the result of the storm outside or from the invasion. Now that he thought about it, the Kyuubi Jinchuriki felt rather foolish. If anyone was still alive, then they shouldn't be here. They should have all been evacuated during the invasion. Naruto placed two of his backpacks near the door. He quickly headed into the kitchen. He decided to forego the refrigerator. Right now, he needed things which could last without needing to be cold. So he opened the cabinets. Yes. He smiled as he noticed them filled with cans of food. It didn't look very appetizing, but he'd take what he could get. Naruto stuffed the cans into one of his empty backpacks. His house was close by as well. He could probably hurry back to his apartment. He could drop them all off and set out again. Naruto decided to do that. Over the next hour, he ran back and forth between his home and the houses near him. He collected canned food, bottles of water, chips, bread, and anything else he could find. Hell, he even took the towels and clothes from the homes where he could find them. If Naruto found a female survivor, he would just not explain the details of how he came across a woman's unmentionables. Just the thought of him getting beaten to an inch of his life by Sakura made him shudder. As a former scavenger, Naruto knew not what he needed, but he knew what he could take. He took everything that he could find. He looked beneath the sinks and picked up cleaning supplies. He picked up eating utensils. The knives could easily be crafted into weapons if he knew how to craft weapons. On his next trip out, Naruto walked through a store. He looted the place of packed bentos, more water, food, chips, and anything else of convenience. Thankfully, the second part of his mission had been completed. He found a map of the general areas of Konoha. He would need that. He tore it off the wall and began marking most of the places he had been to. When Naruto walked outside, he grunted as he covered his face. The winds had gotten stronger. They were so strong that piles of bones from the dead were being flung in his face. It pushed against him so hard that he fell on his back. Kuso. What's with the weather today? Naruto thought. Somehow, Naruto made it back to his home. He pushed the door into its frame and tied the window curtains just as he had done last time. Sore and stiff, he fell to the floor of his living room. Made it, he groaned. Once he caught his breath, Naruto began the meticulous task of trying to sort and arrange all that he had looted. Guilt rushed through his body at the thought of what he stole from his fellow villagers, but he'd write the apology once he survived. Okay. Toilet paper and soap can go in the bathroom with the bathing water. I got some shampoo and all that funny stuff that perverted sage told me girls like in their hair. I have all the clothes I looted in my bedroom. I guess I'll need some boxes for those datbeo, the Kyuubi Jinchuriki said aloud. Naruto sorted all that he had even though he had no idea what some of the shit did. Some of the medicine pills he found in bathroom cabinets were written gibberish to him, but maybe someone else knew what good the shit did. Soon night settled over his apartment. Thankfully, it was a rain-free night. Naruto filled his stomach with bags of chips and the occasional sweet bar that he found. Once he was full, washed himself off and climbed into bed. The next morning, Naruto had breakfast. It was a shitty breakfast, but his stomach didn't care either way. He heard the odd sound of pots and pans scraping across the ground. He stared at the map he looted. Alright, I guess I have enough food, water, and stuff. Kakashi-sensei would probably tell me to only take what I needed. Still, I'll go mad if I stay in here all day, Naruto thought to himself as he threw some of his wrappers in the trash. With that being the case, Naruto decided now was a good time. The goal of today wouldn't be looting. He'd look for anyone else who knew what the hell was going on. Yosh. Best way to cover the area is good old shadow clones. He said. Naruto pushed himself away from the table and crossed the tips of his fingers. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, shadow clone technique, Naruto called out. Unfortunately, what the young genin was expecting he didn't get. Instead, what he got was a scream racked with pain, torment, and agony. He fell to the floor and gripped his body so hard that he tore his white t-shirt. His body felt like it was burning. It felt like hundreds of ants had burrowed into his skin and crawled through his being. He clenched his chest as his body seemed like it was being torn in two. For what seemed like hours, his body experienced the worst kind of agony he had ever felt in years. Slowly, the pain subsided and Naruto breathed easy. What was that? Once the pain was gone, the young man stood up. He looked at his hands. I can't use jutsu? He asked aloud. Being the stubborn boy that he was, Uzumaki Naruto tried again. The pain returned. This time, it felt even worse than before. When Naruto felt it fade he nodded. Yup. No more casting jutsu for a little bit. Though disheartened, Naruto placed his clothes on. Oh well, it looked like he was doing this the old-fashioned way. He left his house and entered the streets. As Naruto walked, he made a point to get some better shoes. Walking in the dusty wind with open-toed sandals was not the most comfortable thing in the world. Nevertheless, he pressed on. As he walked through the barren streets of Konoha, Naruto tried to keep the hope up that he might find someone. Even as he stared at the gruesome and macabre scene in front of him of bodies lying motionless in alleyways, he pressed on. Each person he expected, he prayed it wouldn't be the face of someone he knew. With the hot wind on his face, Naruto held up his map as best he could. The wind wasn't helping. Suddenly, the blonde heard a creak. He looked to his left and cursed as he saw another building crash down beneath its own weight. He jumped out of the way as it fell into another and brought that one down as well. The shattered remains of the structures littered the streets. What was happening to his village, his home? Naruto stared and stared, not knowing that his hands had been gripping the sides of his map intensely. He then looked down to the ground. For so long he had tried to push the thought away. It was the thought which kept him up at night. It was the thought that haunted the steps he walked and the places he looked. What if Uzumaki Naruto was the only one left in Konoha? What if Uzumaki Naruto was the only one left in the entire world? Okay, maybe that last one was a little extreme, but that was how he felt. Between the sound of his steps, the howling of the wind, and the fall of the rain, nothing else answered Naruto's ears. It was like everyone just vanished off the face of the planet. Naruto shook his head and exhaled. He didn't want to think about those things. Instead, he continued on his journey. He had left early in the morning, or what he assumed was morning, so he would have the time to explore. Well, explore until he found something dangerous. Naruto walked through Konoha. The distant echoes of those times a week ago called out to him. How odd. For years, he had wished for the people to stop with the glares and the backtalk. Now, he would have gladly embraced it if it meant having people to even talk about him again. Pretty soon, Naruto found himself walking down a familiar street. This was the road he took to Ichiraku Ramen. He didn't know what he would closer he got to the commercial district, the more debris he found. Clothes were covered in dust and dirt. Some were eaten through by acid rain. More bodies littered the ground. Konoha, Suna, and Odo flak jackets covered in blood laid everywhere. Naruto even saw a few civilian clothes, both from adults and children, scattered across the ground. He tried not to think about it. He just kept walking, questions forming in his head. Would his favorite restaurant still be standing? Were old man Tuki and his daughter Ayame still alive? He received those answers and, to be honest, he wished he hadn't. Naruto stared at Ichiraku Ramen, or where it should have been standing. A large pile of wood and debris laid where it once stood. It seemed most of it had been carried off by the wind. He could still make out the Ichiraku sign. It laid in broken tatters on the ground, sand slowly began to cover it. It was strange. It was almost as if the world was trying to say all that Naruto had loved, never existed in the first place. A curse, Naruto tore through the broken wood of Ichiraku Ramen. This his body begged him not to. He pulled heavy wood and tore things apart. His muscles burned as he worked. His breath grew short from the mask that protected his face from the hot winds. He worked. And worked. And worked. There were no signs that Tuki or Ayame were even alive. Naruto worked until his fingers bled from the sharp nails of the wood. All he was met with was a ground full of sand and dirt. The young genin clenched his fists. Tears threatened to fall down his face. He fell to his knees. Ayame Nichan, Tuki Ojichan. Naruto thought as he laid in the middle of the remains of the ramen shop. Once he collected himself, Naruto decided to move on. He grabbed a pencil marked an X over the map. Suddenly, Naruto heard something break nearby. He turned to the source of the noise. It came from inside one of the sturdier buildings. Hello, Naruto called. No answer. Worried, but hopeful, the Kyuubi Jinchuriki walked over to the building. From the look of it, it was some type of family-owned restaurant. The windows were smashed open and the door was knocked down. Cautiously, Naruto grabbed a kunai from his leg pouch and held it. He then slowly stepped inside. His feet cracked the glass on the floor as he stepped over the fallen door. As he stepped inside, he took account of the room. Tables laid everywhere, broken and unused. Tablecloth littered the ground. He shivered when he saw some of it covered in blood. He also noticed a few bodies laying on the ground or leaning against the wall. He also noticed what he assumed were the bodies of the owners. One was laid out over the table. The other was cut between the customer area and the kitchen area. He turned his head away. Hello, Naruto called. He still received no answer. Was he going crazy from the isolation? It was quite possible. Naruto checked for what he could, but he wanted to further investigate the noise. He would have left it alone, but he noticed spotted trails of dried blood running from the entrance of the restaurant to the back of the establishment. He followed the trail. He stepped over the bodies and passed through the kitchen. As much as Naruto wished to raid the place, he'd most likely have to come back later. He hadn't planned on scavenging today, so he brought only one backpack. The young genin followed the trail of blood and noticed it led up a staircase. It was most likely the family's home after the business hours. Slowly, and cautiously, he walked up the stairs. The blonde gripped his kunai tight. His heart thumped. Sweat poured down from his brow. What if it was an enemy? Naruto steadied his breaths. He continued up the flight of stairs. The trail of blood continued up. Once he made it to the top, he noticed how many destroyed things there were. Nevertheless, he kept his focus on the blood in front of him. It led into one of the bedrooms. Why would it lead there? As Naruto stepped into the bedroom, he widened his eyes. He now realized what the source of the noise was. In a corner of the room, laid a passed-out woman. Her wounds were severe. Multiple cuts and bruises laid on her body. Her unkempt hair sprawled out against the torn bed sheets. Her clothes, destroyed and torn in numerous places, barely held together. Naruto blinked in wonder. It's Hinata's sensei. Kurenai-san. He thought as he finally remembered her name. Naruto hadn't met the Jonin a lot. Hell, if he remembered correctly, he only saw her maybe 2 times. He saw her once when she came to pick up her team at the academy, and he saw her during the preliminary round after the Forest of Death. It was when she convinced him to take that medicine Hinata gave him. Kurenai looked bad. She looked really bad. Naruto wondered how she was even alive at this point. Her quivering lips and irregular pants made him nervous. She looked borderline dead. It was as if she barely held on to the flickering flames of her life. Naruto pulled down his mask. Kurenai-san. He slowly called out. She didn't answer him. He took a step closer. Though she was an ally from his village and he was overjoyed to see her, he didn't want to startle her. This woman in front of him was an elite kunoichi. She could do away with him pretty easily if he wasn't careful. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki reached for her arm. As soon as he touched it, the young boy became thankful that the female Jonin was delirious. Had she not been, the kunai in her hands would have swiped into his head instead of across his hair. Her movement was so fast he thought a white light blew past his eyes. Naruto gasped and stumbled. Kurenai panted and swung her kunai back and forth. Her hair covered her eyes, but the lone Uzumaki could see the sweat pouring down the side of her face. Her eyes were unfocused, her body twitched sporadically, and her swings were unrefined. Oi, Kurenai-san, it's me Naruto. Let me help you. We don't have time for this dadbao. He exclaimed. Unfortunately, the Jonin didn't stop swinging her arms. Naruto saw the blood seep down from her wounds. If she didn't stop soon, he would wonder if he could even save her. However, his chance would come soon. Slowly, Kurenai stopped swinging the kunai. Her energy drained, she fell forward across the floor. The kunai rolled out of her hands. When Naruto checked on her, he stilled. Hinata's sensei had fallen unconscious. He touched her forehead. Her head's hot. She must be really sick. I've got to her out of here, Naruto thought. A boom of thunder and crash of lightning startled the blonde when he finished his thought. He looked outside and the sky darkened. Fuck. He had to get back home. It looked like it was going to rain again. He didn't know how much time he had left. Back home he had at least some form of medicine from the cabinets he had looted. If she stayed here, although Naruto wasn't a doctor, he felt she would die. He ran out of the room and found an old t-shirt. He ripped it up and slowly tied it around Kurenai's mouth. He then ran into the bathrooms of the building. He didn't have time to read, he just stuffed medicine containers, bandage wraps, medicinal alcohol, and anything else he could find. He'd have to come back for the food later if he needed it. That said, considering he was about to have another mouth to feed, it seemed very likely. Once that was done, Naruto placed his goggles over Kurenai's eyes. He had to admit, she did look kind of funny with them on. He then pulled up his face mask, and tightened the hood of his jacket. The winds got stronger. The sky grew darker. It wouldn't be long now. Naruto securely picked up Kurenai and placed her on his back. He groaned. Damn it, how long was it going to take for him to fully heal? Plus, he wouldn't say this out loud ever, but, Hinata's sensei was kinda heavy. He also tried not to think about how soft she felt in his hands. He definitely tried not to think about certain things against his back. Damn it, Ero Sennin. Now, I'm gonna become like you. Naruto groaned. Unpleasant, but slightly adultish thoughts aside, Naruto slowly made his way downstairs with Kurenai on his back. He adjusted his grip on her legs. He heard the way her breathing hitched. There was no time to lose. Once Naruto made it back into the kitchen area, he beelined it for the front of the restaurant. As soon as he stepped outside, his knees buckled. Gusts filled with the destruction of the village blew in his face. Thunder roared across the sky and, in the distance, he could make out swirling tornadoes in the distance of the village. At least 3 of them raged side by side. The storm grew stronger. Don't worry, Kurenai-san. I'll get us to safety, Naruto said as he trudged through the storm, threatening to break Konoha apart. He shivered as a flash of lightning ran across the sky. The ground began to sizzle. A drop of acid rain just barely missed his face. Though his legs burned, and his body stung, Naruto started to run. He held Kurenai as securely as he could while he kicked up dust. By the time Naruto got back to his apartment, he was sweating profusely. He almost dropped Kurenai a couple of times, but he bore the pain in his body and pushed on. His efforts were rewarded and he fell beneath the roof of his apartment complex. He observed his clothes. Some of them had been burned. Some of the protective covering he used for Kurenai was also eaten through. Thankfully, he did make it before he heard the familiar sound of heavy rainfall. The ground was covered in white smoke from the drops that fell from the sky. All right, easy. We're almost there, Dadbao, Naruto encouraged. He picked up the older woman and trudged up the stairs. He was worried when he heard the metal creak and shake. He'd definitely have to find another way to get up here if these ever gave way. This was getting unsafe. Naruto pushed himself and Kurenai past the open door and, in triumph, he chuckled as he made it inside. Well, Kurenai-san, welcome to the abode of Uzumaki Naruto, the Kyuubi Jinchuriki said. He heard the Jonin violently cough behind him. He quickly took her to his room and placed her on his bed. As much as he wanted to relax, he knew he couldn't. Instead, Naruto took a deep breath and exhaled. He stared at Kurenai's body and swallowed the lump in his throat. Please don't kill me. Please don't kill me. Please don't kill me. Please. He prayed, pleaded, begged to whatever gods there were still watching over this dying world. Please don't let him suffer for what he was about to do. He actually thanked Kami that Sakura wasn't with him, or any other woman for that matter. Forget the apocalypse going on outside, he would have died in the safety of his own home. With resolve and determination in his heart, Naruto nodded. First, he took off Kurenai's shoes. He dropped them to the floor. He then leaned her up and got the Jonin out of her clothes. He didn't know what this material was since it looked like some type of white bandage, but it was easily enough to slip her out of it without disturbing her too much. The young man threw her shirt to the floor and then, breathing easier, worked her out of her red mesh armor blouse. Despite the numerous scars, stabs, and cuts seeping blood from her wounds, her fair skin excited him. She was very beautiful. She was much more beautiful than those models in those magazines he used for his sexy jutsu. When he took off her mesh armor, his eyes lingered on her female undergarments. He swallowed again. Her body was so much different from Sakura's. Sakura was a girl, but this was a woman. A true woman laid on his bed. Kuso. Focus, Naruto. Her life is depending on you, he said. He held Kurenai up and unclasped her bra. His reasoning was that he might as well look all of her over for injuries. If she ever found out, then he'd make sure to prostrate himself and utter every apology he could think of. Naturally, knowing his luck, she would find out eventually. Naruto tried very hard not to stare at Kurenai's exposed body. As one might expect of an experienced kunoichi, she was very fit. She was also very beautiful. Her body was very lean and toned. That way her jiggled captivated his eyes. He felt drawn to her tips. A rough cough broke Naruto's trance. He cursed himself and then proceeded with the rest. He pulled down Kurenai's pants, which left only her lower pleats concealed by her underwear. Maybe I'll leave those on. I've given her enough reason to kill me. Can't pile on top of that, Dadbao, he thought. Naruto then quickly made some cold water with some of the bathing jugs he sorted. It took a while, but he finally returned and dunked a rag in the water. He then pressed the rag on Kurenai's forehead. She coughed again. A trail of blood slipped out of her mouth. Next, Naruto cleaned her wounds. He couldn't believe how fast she was losing blood. He had gone through about 2 or 3 rags while he wiped her body down. Please don't criticize him too much if his hands roamed over certain places for too long. Just allow him the excuse of thoroughness. Once Kurenai's wounds were cleaned, Naruto grabbed some alcohol and poured it on the rag. He shivered as he heard the violent winds and crashing rain outside. With no electricity, he had to settle for doing this medical work with the help of a candle. It didn't provide much light, but there wasn't much he could do about it. So I cleaned her wounds. Now, medicine, Naruto thought. Naruto grabbed all the medicine that he had and placed it in front of him. Now came the hard part. He knew fuck all about medicine. He had rarely gotten sick himself. He never knew why. That said, he did read some of the prescriptions. Why did there have to be so many different types of medicine? Why did they all have to have so many words? She's been coughing and she has a fever. I guess one of these might be good. This is non-drowsy, the other's drowsy. This works for 12 hours. This one for 24 hours. There's one for day. There's one for night. Cherry-flavored medicine. Naruto puzzled over what he had before he took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. Okay, I probably shouldn't give her a pill. She could choke. So liquid it is, he said as he held up one of the medicines. Good for 24 hours. Good for high fever and sickness. Helps strengthen chakra veins. Take with full stomach. Oh, Naruto stared at the bottle. He stared at Kurenai's lips. He stared back at the bottle. 1000 ways to die, Uzumaki Naruto. Pick one. Naruto walked into his kitchen and grabbed 2 slices of bread. He chewed on them both thoroughly. He tried to excuse all the reasons that this was not a good idea, but he couldn't come up with one in time before he stood by Kurenai on his bed. Please, don't kill me for this, he said as he stood over Kurenai and placed his mouth over her. He pushed the food into her mouth and helped her slowly swallow it. Well, at least this time he was kissing a girl and not, Sasuke. To be honest, he couldn't even say he enjoyed this one. The taste of blood was on the Jonin's mouth. Granted, it wasn't her fault, but it was an observation. Once that was done, Naruto slowly pulled back. Kurenai muttered something, but Naruto couldn't tell what. He waited for about 5 minutes to 10 minutes then administered the medicine. He had no idea why it looked red, but he wasn't a doctor. He didn't decide what color medicine got to be. Kurenai drank all her medicine and her violent coughing slowly eased. Naruto then quickly got her dressed in some female pajamas that he looted from one of the other homes. Kurenai wouldn't be winning any fashion contests, but at least she was covered. He really wished he could get her an ice pack, but what good was that if it melted immediately? Naruto picked up Kurenai's old clothes. He folded them neatly and placed them in a chair. He left the bedroom to allow Team Eiza-sensei her rest. He made his way into the living room. The storm had made his apartment dark once again. He lit a match and candle for light. When he placed it on his table, he had a brief lunch of canned soup and tasty crackers. He looked at the medicine bottle and his mouth thinned. Every 4 hours. Great, he thought solemnly as he ate his food. He placed the medicine in his pocket. His clothes reeked. He'd have to wash them somehow. Naruto gasped as a boom of thunder rolled across the sky with such force that it shook the walls of his apartment. The rainfall outside turned into a damn downpour. Naruto watched outside as the ground hissed and sizzled. He actually wondered, would the ground beneath his apartment collapse? The thought made Naruto shiver. He would have to find some other place to live. Did he even have some other place to live? What if Kurenai didn't get better? He couldn't abandon her now that he had found her, but where else would he go? A sigh, the blonde took out his map. He marked the restaurant where he found Kurenai as food. Now, he needed to look through the rest of the village. That also made him wonder. What would happen if Konoha ran out of living spaces? Would he have to leave the village? Where would he go? Naruto placed his head in his hands and sighed. What am I supposed to do? The young genin questioned. He felt really out of his league at the moment. As Naruto picked up his dishes and used some dishwater to clean them, his eyes noticed something on his floor. It was an old journal with a pen attached to it. He picked it up and dusted it off. He probably looted this from one of the convenience stores across the street. The young man stared at the journal for a time, and before long he found himself at his table. He listened to the harsh weather outside his apartment. His eyes were tired and heavy. His body was so sore. He picked up the pen and opened the empty journal. Naruto's log, Day 1. Naruto's log, Day 4. 3 days have passed since I started making this journal. Hinata-sensei is still asleep. She mumbles from time to time. I've had to wipe sweat off her forehead. She mumbles about Shino, Kiba, and Hinata, but mostly Hinata. I don't know what she's talking about, but I'm glad to see she's fine. I've left on a few looting adventures, but I don't go for long. I'd rather not leave Kurenai-san by herself while she's resting. I've brought back some more food, but most of the meat and vegetables in freezers or refrigerators is filled with maggots and flies. I guess bugs can survive this type of thing just fine. Since finding Kurenai 3 days ago, I haven't found anyone else. The rain slowly eats away at my rooftop. Other buildings have crashed down. Wood and stone drift off to nowhere. I don't know how much longer this apartment will hold. I hope Kurenai-san gets better soon. Naruto closed his journal and put down his pen. He expelled a tired breath. He leaned back into his chair. The wind wasn't blowing too bad this time. Dark clouds and arid air still ruled the skies, but at least he could see a bit better. It hadn't been such a bad expedition. He gathered what he could. He brought back cases of water bottles, more canned goods, and boxes filled with supplies that hadn't been ravaged by the oncoming storms. The blonde looked at his clock. Ah, it was time for Kurenai's medicine. So, with that being said, Naruto pushed his seat away from his table and walked back to the bedroom. He had just fed the older Jonin via the lips earlier, so he doubted he had to do it again. He wouldn't say he got used to kissing her, but there wasn't so much hesitation as last time. Naruto slowly opened his door and he noticed the woman still resting. Before he gave her the medicine, he decided to change the cold towel on her forehead. He touched her and smiled. At least you don't have a fever anymore, he said. He placed another wet rag on her before he gave her the medicine. He held her head to make sure she didn't choke on it. Her hair was very soft. Once she drank all of it, he eased her back into the pillow. After that, he cleaned her body with lukewarm water and soap. Yup, her body still embarrassed the hell out of him, but he tried to get over it. Those tasks done, the Kyuubi Jinchuriki pulled the covers up to Kurenai's neck and let her rest. He then moved to his futon on the floor. He set it up to give Kurenai more space on the bed. The eerie howls outside lulled him to sleep. The next morning, Naruto smiled. Some color had finally returned to Kurenai's pale face. He fed her breakfast and then gave her medicine again. Once she was resting peacefully, he closed the door to his bedroom. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki walked into the bathroom and poured water down his body. He grabbed some soap and cleaned himself. Another splash of water and he was ready for breakfast. This time, Naruto changed it up. He had finally done it. He finally got all the instant ramen packets and cup noodles from a convenience store that hadn't been taken. Of course, this wasn't exactly breakfast, but come on. Have a heart. It took the young man some time to heat up the water and the damn 5 minutes for it to fill about 3 cups of ramen. However, once it was done, he was in heaven if only for an instant. Still, the blonde couldn't relax yet. He pulled out his map and studied it while he ate. Numerous places had been crossed out or labeled. He tried to do a lot of searching now that he had a better grasp of the situation at hand. Let's see. I should probably search for someplace else to live in case this building collapses. Kurenai's the only one I've found for 4 days. I've only got 4 hours to be out before I have to give Hinata-sensei her next dose, he thought. Naruto tapped his finger on the table. There were so many other places to explore, but he'd rather stay close to Kurenai in case of danger. Slowly, Naruto turned his gaze to the one place he had been avoiding for some time. He closed his eyes and steeled himself. He avoided this place in particular because he had no doubts that he wouldn't like what he saw. Still, now wasn't the time for him to be scared. This world was different. Gone was the world which he knew. If he couldn't do this, then what was the point in him even saving Hinata-sensei? Naruto grabbed his gear. He placed his goggles over his eyes and grabbed one of the coats he stole from some fashion shop. He then wrote Kurenai a letter. On the off chance that she woke up and he wasn't home, then at least she wouldn't be confused. Hell, he hoped that he could return home and toss the letter in the trash. Either way, Naruto lifted up the door to his apartment and slid out beneath it. He then jumped on the railing and dashed off. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki decided to hop along the rooftops this time. Getting to his destination would take much longer if he was going by simple walking. Besides, he didn't feel the need to get distracted with unnecessary looting. He had enough to tide them over for now. Hell, he was already using one of the other apartment rooms for storing other things. That said, he didn't want to take too much. If he did move to a new location, he couldn't carry all of this stuff. Without the use of storage scrolls, he was pretty much stuck with what he could carry. Thankfully, the wind wasn't hard today. In fact, it seemed to be a nice day. Well, nice for hell on earth, but you get the idea. There was still no sun given the thick clouds in the sky, but at least there were no thunderstorms or rainfalls. From above the rooftops, Naruto took in his surroundings. His home looked nothing like the amazing spectacle of a village that it used to be. Instead, it looked like the god of death had moved its hand through the entire nation. Destruction laid everywhere. Children's parks had been destroyed. Buildings and rubble laid everywhere. Then, there were the corpses. Naruto grimaced when he saw melted skin and crushed bones turn to dust. He heard distant sounds of a cane that rolled down the dusty road. As Naruto got closer and closer to his destination, he suddenly stopped. He stared forward in silent shock. He had never been this out before, and because of the dust and wind, visibility was pretty low. Only now that the wind had settled could he see the Hokage stone faces, or lack thereof. The Shadaime, Nadaime, Sandaime, and Yondaime Hokage faces were no longer on the mountain. No, they crushed the Hokage mansion and everything inside it. That must have been that thunderous earthquake Naruto felt a few days ago. The harsh weather became too much for the monuments and they fell beneath their own weight. The Hokage mansion, once the very symbol of Konoha's prosperity, laid broken down beneath the stone faces. Naruto stared at the Yondaime Hokage head. There were many times he sat on top of that spot. It helped him think. It helped him escape the village many times. Now, it was gone. Its face was cracked and bruised. One more rainfall and it would become a distant memory. Unable to help himself, Naruto dashed for the Hokage mansion. He didn't know what he expected to find, but his legs carried him there anyway. When Naruto arrived at the scene, his heart dropped. The stairs which led up the mountain to the faces became rusted. It had fallen over with sand and dust seeking to devour it. His eyes burned in the memory of the dried blood of hundreds, perhaps even thousands of civilians and shinobi. It was then that he remembered, in case of emergency, the Hokage rock was used for safety from village threats. Naruto clenched his fists so hard that blood fell from his palms. Academy students were always some of the first to be ushered there. That most likely meant Konohamaru, Udon, Moegi, Iruka-sensei, they were all gone. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki turned away. He turned away from his desire to confirm the deaths. He turned away from the massacre he knew he would unearth if he dug. He turned away from the gruesome fate that had befallen all of the civilians who hid there. He just knew that if he looked, he wouldn't know what to do with himself. Naruto dashed off. With time, the blonde finally saw his destination appear in front of him. He could tell he was getting closer because the amount of bodies was getting larger. Corpses littered the streets. Some laid in alleyways, others were melted away from the acid rain. There were some clothing fragments, but those too burned away without much struggle. Naruto finally arrived at his destination. He always thought he'd be getting congratulated for winning the Chunin exams, not coming back to an eerie graveyard of corpses. Naruto left the rooftops and placed his feet on the sandy floor. Seriously, Naruto, boots. Get them. With a shake of his head, he walked the streets. Death laid anywhere his eyes were. Mountains of corpses riddled one side of the street. He figured this happened because the people were too anxious to get away. Some had their skulls caved in. That probably happened from the ensuing panic. People stepped on the poor souls to death. Merchant stores, food stalls, entertainment facilities, there was no living thing within them. The howls of the wind, the uneasy creaks of wood, the sight of melted stone, and the vision of hanging bodies from the rooftops to the floor made the last Uzumaki wonder if this trip was even a good idea anymore. As the stadium got bigger and bigger, Naruto thought he smelled something strange. It was only when he actually made it to one of the entrances did he cover his nose. Ugh, what's that smell? He wondered. He grabbed his mask and held it over his nose. He then entered the dark passages of the Chunin exam stadium. Naruto felt a little worried. The few steps he took inside the dark corridors of the Chunin exam stadium left him unnerved. His steps echoed like 1,000 pin drops. All around him was death, grim and unceasing. Blood splattered the walls, crushed limbs and innards portrayed some macabre art that left him queasy. Food vendors and broken glass mixed with some of the bodies. Naruto walked up the stairs. He shivered when he saw more corpses laying on the staircase. The smell got stronger. The distant creaks of metal braces and pipeline works caused a shiver. The howl of the wind outside seemed so far away. Nevertheless, Naruto kept walking. Yet, as he walked, the blonde couldn't help but feel like he was being followed. The young Uzumaki remembered a lesson from his sensei. Always trust your instincts. Your instincts will save you faster than your mind ever will. Shinobi don't randomly get paranoid. If something felt wrong, then more often than not, it was. Naruto stopped walking. He looked behind himself. Nothing changed. There was only darkness, bodies, blood, and silent chaos. His blue eyes darted left. They darted right. He saw nothing out of the ordinary. So, he kept walking. However, he didn't get very far. Naruto turned his head to the left wall and he wished he hadn't. Now, yes, at this very moment, he understood that his world was gone. Naruto stared at the familiar green jumpsuit and the bowl cut of one boy. The other, he recognized by the decaying red markings on his face. In his arms were the broken bones of a small animal. Both corpses laid motionless against the wall. Kiba, bushy brows, Naruto thought to himself. He remembered seeing Kiba and some of his other friends when he tried to warn them about Gaara. So, they didn't get away. The blonde knelt down and sighed. Kiba, he was one of Kurenai's genin. What was he going to tell her when she woke up? Naruto didn't remember if he cried or not. He just continued to stare at the scene in front of him with disbelieving eyes. Even when everything was going to shit, he still thought at least some of his friends might have gotten away. Once again he realized just how stupid and naive he was. Naruto knelt and offered his two friends a silent prayer. If even they didn't make it, what other hope was he holding on to? After that, Naruto continued walking. His path led him to a row of the crowd benches. As one might expect, more bodies laid over the seats. Each one was more disturbing than the last. Yet, the thing which disturbed Naruto the most was the giant fissure in the fighting area. The place where he fought Neji had a massive opening split right down the middle. One might think it a land beast with a mouth if they saw it from the right angle. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki walked back inside. As he did, he heard the distant sound of rumbling thunder. Well, that wasn't good. Naruto definitely didn't want to hunker down in the Chunin exam stadium. Ever since he got here, the place gave him the creeps. That feeling of being watched never stopped. Still, Naruto did come here for a reason. In the many years of his life, Naruto had been to the stadium many times. Not many people knew this, but the stadium actually had a network of tunnels that led to most of the major parts of the village. If he could get the power restored to one of the lower areas, then that might be a good place to live instead of his house. At last the fear of buildings coming down on him and Kurenai would be taken care of. That said, Naruto knew shit about generators, electricity, and power. Plus, there was still that ominous feeling. More time passed. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki discovered another staircase. He cautiously took it down. The further down he went, the darker it got. The darker it got, the stronger the stench. The stronger the stench, the more danger he felt he was in. Floor after floor, he finally had to take out a flashlight. Alright, I think I know where I am. This is one of the maintenance areas for the stadium, he thought. The blonde walked. His footsteps echoed even louder than before. He opened some doors that he found, but he saw nothing of significance inside. Still, he supposed he could use these for storage if he cleaned them up a bit. He could add some torches to the walls for light and it was pretty easy to come and go. Naruto continued to walk. He turned down a separate hallway. He stiffened when he heard something fall in the distance. It sounded like something metal. Not taking any chances, Naruto grabbed his kunai. He then turned off his flashlight. Though he didn't want to be stumbling around in the dark, if it was an enemy that he didn't want them to know where he was. The young genin quickly hid behind a couple of stray boxes. He held his cloth mask over face. Whatever was down here, it was the worst thing Naruto had ever smelled in his life. The blonde sat in the darkness for a little while. So far, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. He moved on, but he did it a bit quieter this time. He rounded another corridor. He chuckled some doors but he didn't notice anything too suspicious. It was only when Naruto smelled blood did he stop. The young man turned to a door. The stench came from there. He grabbed the doorknob and turned it open. It was too dark to see inside, so Naruto turned on his flashlight. When he did, he saw a trail of blood flowing from the door to a deep corner of the room. He held up the flashlight and his eyes widened. The flashlight fell from his hands. Ha ha ha, what are you doing out there in the rain? You're gonna catch cold, kid. Here, come have a nice, hot bowl of ramen. It's on me. Naruto didn't hear the thud of the flashlight. Its light shined dimly, gravely, mockingly. Hey Naruto, my best customer. Haven't seen ya in a while. How's it going? Any cool mission stories for me today? Me. Ya, me, a voice croaked out. Naruto fell to his knees and retched over the ground. His breath felt short. His world felt like it was fading. He barely held himself together from going mad. He grabbed his forehead. Against the floor, he thudded his head so hard he felt dizzy. What kind of world was this? What hell did the genin wake up in? What the fuck was wrong with him? Why was everyone? Naruto held up his head. Was he crying? He didn't even know. He felt like he was going to pass out. Tsukio-jichin, Naruto shuddered in thought as he stared at the wall. Stuck to the wall from some kind of sick, demented yellow puss tissue laid Tsuki, the owner of Ichiraku Ramen. Naruto could see the older man's ramen clothes. His face looked bloated with splotches and quivering pores. Rats sniffled at his legs and some of his skin had peeled off. Other parts looked like they had been eaten. Then there was his stomach. Naruto knew Tsuki most of his life. The man never had a gut that big. Even worse than that, it moved left and right every now and then. Ya, me, Tsuki groaned as his neck spasmed. The one eye that Naruto saw rolled back into Tsuki's head. His fingers twitched. As Naruto knelt there, he raised his fist into the air. He then slammed it into the floor. So great was his strength that he left a powerful dent where he punched. Naruto reached into his backpack. He pulled out an explosive tag. Naruto then slapped his cheeks so hard that they stung. He stared forward. Tsuki Oji-chan, I swear to you. If I find Ayame Nichan, I will protect her. Uzumaki Naruto stakes his damn life on it, Dadbao. I'm sorry I didn't get to you in time. I'll protect Ayame Nichan. I'll survive. She'll survive. I promise. Naruto claimed proudly. He stared at the horrific blob that was his friend. He then bit his thumb enough to draw blood. With that blood, he smeared his knuckles and shot them in Tsuki's direction. Uzumaki Naruto never goes back on his word. He claimed. He then tied the explosive tag to the kunai. Naruto picked up his backpack and flashlight. He headed for the door. Aya. Me. Tsuki moaned. Naruto turned back to throw the kunai and felt his body grow cold for a moment. Thanks to his flashlight, he could see Tsuki's full body. More importantly, he could see the tipped finger of Tsuki's right hand. His forefinger pointed to the right. It only held for a moment before his body started to spasm violently once again. The blonde firmly nodded. Hi. I got it, Tsuki Oji-chan. I won't fail you, Dadbao. He exclaimed. He then grabbed a match and lit it with fire. His eyes shined beneath the hot stick. He placed the fire under the tag. The tag ignited. I won't leave you to suffer, Oji-chan. I'm sorry, Naruto said as he threw the kunai into the wall. Once the kunai stuck, the blonde turned around and walked out of the door. Tsuki groaned as the door closed. The young Uzumaki ran as fast as he could as a thunderous explosion blasted the door from its hinges. Fire roared from the room the genin was in while he wiped the tears from his eyes. He kept running to the right. He knew not what laid ahead for him, but he could no longer hesitate. He couldn't afford to lose his nerve now. He couldn't afford to show weakness. It was time for Uzumaki Naruto to wake the hell up. Once he was far enough away, Naruto slowed his steps. He inhaled and exhaled slowly. The genin turned his flashlight to one of the walls. He noticed a map for the general layout of the building. Though he had already given up on the idea of turning this place into a new base, it still had suitable things if he desired to come back. Okay, as soon as I find Ayame Nichan, then I'll head back, Naruto thought to himself. However, even as Naruto had that thought, he wondered. What turned Tsuki into that thing on the wall? The genin's travels through the dark brought him to the very end of a corridor. He still hadn't found the maintenance area for the lights, but at this point he didn't care. He just wanted to get out of here with Ayame, if she was even still alive. Naruto shook his head. He dared not think that. Even seeing Tsuki like that was almost too much for him. If Ayame was no better, what could he do? About 5 to 10 minutes later, the Kyuubi Jinchuriki noticed a small light beneath one of the doors. Cautiously, he stepped towards it. Unlike the other rooms, there was a large pile of boxes, chairs, and even tables blocking the door. He made sure his footsteps were quiet. If Ayame was behind the door, then he'd rather not spook her. Still, what made them put up this barrier? Naruto got over the obstacles easily enough. He then stood in front of the door. I knocked on it slowly. Ayame Nichan, he whispered. The young man didn't know why he was being so quiet, but something told him to speak softly. He got no answer. Naruto grabbed the door handle and twisted it. He frowned. Locked, he said. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki took the kunai in his hand and jabbed it into the door. It took some doing, but he managed to pry open the door. It opened with a rather eerie creak. He passed through it and the door closed behind him. Naruto noticed he was in some kind of boiler room. Tons of machinery and pipes laid in the room. Iron pierced the walls and ceiling. The light he had seen was from a series of light bulbs in a lamp overhead. Its harsh glow stung his eyes. It was no surprise why. He had been walking in the dark for over an hour before now. As Naruto took a step into the center of the room, his instincts flared. He ducked his head. He heard the crash of something metal against the iron railing on his left. He then heard a gasp. He swung his kunai and a clash of iron and steel rang through the boiler room. Naruto turned his head and he noticed his kunai clashed with an iron pipe. However, he widened his eyes when he saw Ayame standing over him. Her gentle face contorted with pure rage and hatred. Never did the Kyuubi Jinchuriki think the young girl he thought his friend would ever wear such an expression. Ayame Nichan, wait, it's me, Naruto. Naruto spoke quickly. Given the light in the room, the blonde saw the young woman's hands shake. You even took Naruto-kun. He was a nice boy. He was. Die, Ayame said as she swung again. Naruto ducked beneath the strike and backed away. Wait, Ayame Nichan, it's really me. I swear, Dadbao, your dad told me to come get you. I'm here to get you out of here, the blonde explained. Now that the Kyuubi Jinchuriki had the time to properly look at the ramen waitress, she was not okay. While she wasn't on the level of bad that Kurenai had, she still had seen better days. Her hair was unkempt and wild. Bags appeared under her eyes and her skin looked pale. Parts of her clothes had either been torn or worn out. Her steps were unsteady. Don't talk to me. My father's been gone for over 2 weeks. It was you. The others didn't believe me, but I knew. I told them not to go. Why you took them? The darkness took them. It follows you. It does. She screamed. Naruto held up his hands slowly. Yet, her hysteria unsettled him greatly. What did she mean the darkness took them? What did she mean by it follows you? Ayame Nichan, please, I promise, it's me Dadbao. You've served me ramen ever since I was 5. You and Tuki Ojichan always gave me free ramen on my birthday. You guys, shut up. Ayame roared as she swung the iron pipe. Naruto jumped out of the way as the pipe crashed into the stone wall. The blonde recoiled in shock. Damn, for a civilian Ayame really had some power. She cracked the wall with that iron pipe. If that hit Naruto then he'd forget about healing in a week. He'd need a whole month. Naruto-kun's gone. Everyone's gone. I'm the only one left. I haven't slept or eaten for days. I know if I do, it will come for me. Just like it came for you, for my father, for everyone else. I won't let it happen to me too. I'll avenge my father, Ayame said as she stumbled over her steps. Naruto jumped back as Ayame swung the pipe again. She screamed at him as she swung, but the blonde made no attempts to hurt the girl. He let her swing her heart out as she bashed into the boilers, the pipes, and the walls. Something must have broken because steam started to fill the room. He watched more and more sweat pour down Ayame's face. She tripped and fell down. Her breaths became ragged as she swung. Naruto stared at Ayame's fallen form. Ayame Nichan, the genin thought. The brown-haired girl dragged the pipe over the floor. It made loud clanging sounds as she neared Naruto. I told Dad not to go. Why didn't they all listen to me? I heard that explosion. He didn't make it, did he? Now, everyone's gone. I'm all that's left. You took them all. Before I die, I'll at least take you with me. Ayame roared. She held the pipe over her head. Naruto didn't move. She wondered why he didn't move to defend himself, but she didn't care. If the darkness gave her a free shot then she was going to take it. With all her strength, she swung down. Ayame widened her eyes as Naruto caught the pipe with his hand. He then pulled it in her. He held her as tight as he could. Let go of me. I'll kill you. You took everything for me. What's happened to the world? Why did this happen? Ayame wailed and cried as her head fell into Naruto's shoulders. The 2 Konoha citizens fell to the ground as the ramen waitress cried on the young man's shoulder. Naruto caressed her hair while her fists pounded his chest. I'm sorry, Ayame Nichan. I was too late, Dadbao. I was too late to save you or Tuki Oji. I'm sorry I couldn't help you. I'm here now though, Dadbao. I'll keep you safe now. I'll make sure you aren't alone anymore. We'll survive, Ayame Nichan. Naruto vowed. Ayame sobbed into his arms while he caressed her hair. Suddenly, Naruto heard some light snoring. He looked down. Ayame had fallen asleep. Was he really going to have to carry someone else again? The Kyuubi Jinchuriki sighed and smiled. Ayame's breath tickled his neck, which made him shiver. He touched her forehead. She feels a little warm. I hope she's not sick too, but I've got to get her out of here, he thought. Naruto picked up Ayame and secured her to his body. He then made his way towards the door. The steam was getting too heavy. However, as soon as he touched the door, a burst of fear rushed through the young man's body. His hand shivered in the door handle. Something laid beyond the door. It was then that Naruto remembered Ayame's words. TTTT, the darkness took them. It follows. It follows you. The last Uzumaki wondered if his nerves were getting to him. Perhaps Ayame's story creeped him out a bit. What was out there? Naruto walked for a long time and he didn't see anything. Nothing attacked him. He grabbed the door handle again. Suddenly, Naruto gasped. He jumped back. Dread rolled up his body. He then remembered. No, nothing attacked him, but something attacked Ayame's dad. How did he get stuck to the wall like that? What turned him into that? Unfortunately, the blonde would have to make his move soon. He had to get Ayame out of here. Plus, the steam from the busted pipe continued to fill up the room with steam. He was all for a sauna, but not if it would leave him a dried up prune. Naruto picked up his kunai. He then placed another in his mouth. Fuck it. He would run in anything that wasn't him or Ayame. He would either take it down, run past it, or die in the attempt. Either way, he wasn't going down without a fight. The young genin swung open the door. It was dark. There was nothing in that void that he could see. Had it always been that dark? He wasn't sure. I'll protect you, Ayame Nichan. Naruto thought. The blonde dashed into the darkness. As soon as he made it over the barrier blocking the door, he ran as fast as he could. The dark felt heavy. It felt like it was trying to coil around him like a serpent. The echoes of his feet roamed through the corridors. He hoped his ears were playing with him because he thought he heard something screech in the distance. Naruto ran so fast he was surprised he didn't hit anything on the way out. Yet, no matter how fast he ran, he had a feeling. He was being followed. Something had its eye on him. In his arms, Naruto carried the unconscious Ichiraku ramen server. He ran so fast he thought his heart might give out. Sweat poured down his body. The darkness was getting heavier. He had long passed the fire that he used to free Tyuki from his torment. Truth be told, he only had a vague idea of where he was going. He ran so fast his legs were getting sore. Luckily for him, his efforts were rewarded. Naruto saw the stairs he used to get down to the lower levels. Yosh! We made it, Ayame Nichan, Naruto thought. As soon as his foot touched the bottom step, Naruto shivered as he felt something long grab his leg. It was wet, spongy, and strong. He turned around. The blonde gasped when he saw what looked like a tendril of wet skin wrapped around his leg. What the? The young genin though before the tendril started to pull him back into the corridor. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki heard something groan and skitter in the encroaching darkness. Whatever it was strong. It was stronger than anything he had faced before. It felt like the damn thing was trying to rip his leg from the rest of his body. Naruto growled. He thought quickly. He took out another explosive tag and scrapped the ground with his kunai. The sparks fell into the tag and lit it with flames. You took Tyuki Ojisan. You don't get Ayame Nichan too. Naruto swore. The blonde threw the tag into the darkness. A loud explosion rocked the chambers and he heard a blood-curdling scream of pain as the tentacle unwrapped itself from his leg. As fast as he could, Naruto limped up the stairs. He left the darkness behind him. He heard gurgling. The tendril slipped back into the darkness. Yup. Definitely not making this place a base. A slithering growl and hiss was heard in the darkness. The noise got smaller and smaller before there was only silence. Naruto inhaled and exhaled. He was tired. He was dead tired. He looked at his leg and he noticed a piece of his pants was torn. He also noticed he was bleeding. The genin shook his head. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki limped up the stairs and came back to the Chunin exam stadium stands. It took some time, but he left the area and entered the streets. He pulled a cover over Ayame's face to make sure she wouldn't inhale the dust and dirt. The thunder and lightning sounded so far away in his ears while he journeyed. Naruto noticed his vision was getting hazy. His breath became short. 1,000 bright lights flared in his eyes. He could hear the beat of his chest. Naruto took a step forward and his leg gave out. He crashed into the side of a wall and panted. Kei Kuso. Can't breathe, he thought to himself. Everything was swirling and spiraling in front of him. He couldn't keep himself awake. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki fell forward and his face hit the dust. HMPH, stupid brat. Fine. Consider this a debt that will be repaid. Despite the strange voice, Naruto passed out. When Naruto opened his eyes, he noticed he was back in his apartment. He inhaled. He turned his head to the window. It was dark outside. He fell asleep on his table. How did I get here? I don't remember making it home, the young man thought. When he leaned up, Naruto found he had fallen asleep at his table. A medicine vial laid in front of him. He picked it up and looked it over. Suddenly, he jumped up. Shit, I didn't give Kurenai her medicine. Where is Ayame-chan? He asked himself. Dizzily, he fumbled through his house. Naruto opened his bedroom door and stepped inside. Kurenai laid on his bed. She slept peacefully. Ayame laid on a futon on the floor. She also slept peacefully. Naruto leaned against the door and slid to his floor. How long had he been asleep? The blonde's blue eyes traveled to his wounded leg. It was already healed. Dried blood stained some torn parts, but it was nothing he couldn't wipe off. Though he had questions, Naruto was thankful that he made it back home. The sound of the storm outside made him shiver. The unsettling howls of wind over the dying land rolled through his ears. The rising questions aside, Naruto stood to his feet. He touched Kurenai's forehead. I guess she's doing better. I don't know if I gave her medicine or not. I'll just give her half a cup then, he thought. Naruto poured a half cup of medicine. He then held up Kurenai's head and let her drink. Once she was full, he set her back down. He was thankful for her rhythmic sleeping breaths. It made him smile for whatever reason. He turned his head and looked down. Now, that left Ayame. He touched her forehead and cheeks. He didn't feel anything wrong. She was just sleeping peacefully. Naruto brushed a piece of hair from her face. Ayame's dad was gone. Kiba was gone. Lee was gone. Was everyone else gone? Despite his sleep, Naruto didn't feel very refreshed. He still felt tired. So, he pulled up Ayame's covers and walked out of the room. He grabbed a small rag and dipped it in cold water. He wiped some of the sweat off Ayame's forehead and he cleaned Kurenai. Yes, it was still embarrassing, but after a week of doing it, he was dealing with it. Once the two ladies were taken care of, Naruto closed the door to his room. He gave himself a bath with some of the jugged water in the category for bathing. He was beginning to run low on that. He'd have to make another trip for more water at some point. With his bath done, Naruto feasted on some jerky snacks, chips, and canned soup. The blonde even surprised himself when he decided to add some fruit to his dinner. He ate some apples and bananas that he found still fresh. With his stomach full, Naruto washed the dishes that piled up in his sink. He already knew if Kurenai and Ayame woke up, they would criticize him for the mess. Shikamaru would have called it troublesome. Once the dishes were done, Naruto lit a candle and stared at his map. He traced the path he took from his home to the stadium. He marked the stadium with a large danger symbol. He then crossed it out. Naruto clenched his hand into a fist. He closed his eyes when he heard the sound of another crash. Some house, store, or building in the distance fell down beneath its own weight. The winds picked up. Okay, I need more water. There's still some at the market. I can go get that. Then, I'll need more shinobi tools. That should be in the shinobi district that sells kunai and other things. I could also get some mesh armor and other things, but that's further than the Chunin exam stadium. I guess I'll take inventory tomorrow morning, Naruto thought to himself. For the next 30 minutes, Naruto worked out his plans for the next day. Once that was done, the young man grabbed his journal and wrote in it. Naruto's log, day 5, I guess. Kurenai still hasn't woken up. The medicine I've been giving her is getting smaller and smaller. I might need to get her something else if she doesn't wake up. I went to the Chunin exam stadium in the hopes of getting a new place to stay from the weather outside. I didn't find a base. I found a graveyard. Kiba and Bushy Brow are gone like the others. I saw Tuki Ojisan. He was wrapped in some type of flesh sack. He wasn't the nice old man who always gave me ramen. His body twitched and I saw hundreds, if not thousands, of slithering things beneath his skin. I freed him from his torment. Thanks to him, I also found Ayame Nichan. I don't know what I'll tell her if she asks me about her dad. It doesn't matter to me though. I'll protect her. I swore to Tuki Oji that I would. I saved her from the lower levels, but I was attacked by something down there. It laid in the darkness. I think it was hunting me ever since I stepped down there. Don't go to the stadium. Something crazy lurks down there. I barely made it out with Ayame Nichan. I passed out shortly after, but I somehow made it hope. I guess Kami hasn't forsaken me yet. I'll be getting supplies tomorrow. Naruto yawned as he scribbled on his journal. The flames of the candle illuminated his blonde hair. A blast of lightning and a crash of thunder shook his house. He steadied his breathing. The hours rolled by. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki closed his journal and placed it somewhere safe. He then exhausted himself with doing some basic exercises. End of the world or not, he had to be strong to face it. The exercises tired him out and Naruto set up a chair with a pillow and covers. He fell asleep from the sounds of coming rain. Next morning, Naruto stretched himself awake. His body felt rather stiff from the chair he slept in. The first thing he did was grab the medicine on his table and head into the bedroom. He slowly opened the door. Ayame had turned over in the futon and Kurenai remained the same. He checked Kurenai again. The blonde smiled. No fever. He walked out of the room and into the bathroom. With a wet towel, he washed Kurenai's body again. Honestly, she sweated quite a bit for having done no strenuous activity. Perhaps he should have been thankful that Ayame wasn't awake to see this as well. Once that was done, Naruto grabbed some food and munched on it. He kissed Kurenai and fed her breakfast. While he let her stomach digest her food, he turned to Ayame. He contemplated giving her a bath as well. She kinda smelled bad, but that wasn't really her fault. A sigh, Naruto decided to do Ayame as well. Now, Naruto didn't know shit about sickness, but Kurenai was starting to get better. If Ayame who came from some dirty place wasn't clean, then wouldn't that affect Kurenai who was still recovering? He thought so anyway. The young genin pulled the covers off Ayame and took off her clothes. Perhaps he should have been more flustered, but he didn't have the time. Plus, it wasn't so bad now. Oh sure, he was still scared to death if they woke up, but what could he do? Damned if he did, damned if he didn't. Naruto took off Ayame's clothes. He gulped. The ramen waitress body wasn't exactly on par with the Jonin's, but she was a true beauty nonetheless. He always thought Ayame was beautiful and cute, but she was way older than him. Plus, he had an interest in Sakura at the time. Well, he still did, but in the face of these two beautiful women, Naruto couldn't deny that Sakura didn't measure up. Still, Ayame Nichan's got some daring underwear, Naruto thought as he gulped again. She was still growing, but her body began to fill out like a proper woman. Dare Naruto say he was happy for the end of the world. If Ayame grew up normally, he'd have to beat all the lechers off with a damn stick to protect the brunette. Her beautiful skin and her flat stomach were a wonder to behold. Her nipples were quite the wonder to look at, and Naruto had to take his mind off of them multiple times. Okay, maybe he wasn't as used to it as he thought. He grabbed the towel and wiped Ayame down. Naturally, he left her lower garments on. He was crazy, not suicidal. He washed her hair and scrubbed her with soap. He was rather surprised that she didn't wake up, but he only attributed that to her tiredness. MMMMHMMM, Ayame groaned, which made him pause. What did I do to deserve this? Naruto screamed to himself before he continued. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki finished washing the ramen waitress and dressed her in new clothes. He placed her clothes with Kurenai's old clothes. He then pulled her covers up to her neck. He then closed the door and left them to their rest. Once his two guests were taken care of, Naruto ate some more and took stock of the inventory he had. He needed more water. The food was still in relative goodness. He could probably pick up more medicine from the other stores in the commercial district. That is, if the buildings hadn't been crushed and destroyed. I guess today I'll go searching for food and water. Tomorrow, I'll do clothes and home stuff. I also need more shinobi tools, but that's a little far, Naruto thought to himself. He picked up some new clothes in his backpack. He then moved out of his home. Before he began his journey, Naruto inspected his house. The roof still looked stable and everything was standing strong. However, he did notice a few more creaks on the lower levels than had been there before. It was nothing to worry about now, but that didn't mean it wouldn't be a worry later. Naruto would have to keep his eyes peeled. So, the last Uzumaki went out again. He quickly noticed it was hotter than it was yesterday. In fact, it was so hot, he actually ran back inside and shed off the coat he was wearing. There was no heavy wind today and the breeze felt nice. He still kept the mask for the blowing sand and dust. The sky was still dark with dust clouds and the putrid color of green and dark yellow, but at least there was nothing else to deter him. He quickly opened his map and grinned. Right on target, he thought as he ran through the remnants of his ruined homeland. The young blonde entered one of the convenience stores that he hadn't looted and began taking all that he could. He opened his backpack and filled it with more convenience snacks such as bentos, bread boxes, chips, bottled water, warm soda, and juice jugs. He ran back to his home and dropped those off in over 5 trips. He also grinned when he found bandages, gauzes, cloth wraps, a few bottles of medicinal alcohol, and some healing ointments. He looted the convenience store for all it was worth. Don't ask him why he took the pots, pans, and other cooking materials. Maybe he could use them or shred them down for scrap. Either way, he thought they were worth something. Once convenience store 1 was looted, Naruto started moving to other places. He picked up some more clothes. Some for himself and others that he thought girls, or women would wear. If Ayame and Kurenai had a problem then they could get their own clothes later. After about 8 trips, Naruto took a break with some water and jerky. He had collected enough foot crates, jugs of water, and supplies for the house to at least last another month or 2. Hell, if Ayame and Kurenai stayed asleep then those provisions would last longer. That said, he was beginning to use other rooms for storage. One of the apartment rooms was for clothes. Another was for spare food. Still, he wished he had some help. If one of them awoke then at least that would give him the confidence to go further out. With his break finished, Naruto began his trek through the commercial district of the village. He marked some places on his map for further exploration. He even looted the cash registers of money. Not like they would be needing it now. He also had a mind to go to the Konoha Bank and get everything from there if it was still standing. No, Naruto didn't think it right to just rob people blind, but what else was he supposed to do? Hell, all the people who probably used the stuff were dead. Plus, if things continued like this, he, Kurenai, and Ayame might have to move from Konoha. He didn't know how the rest of the world acted, but he doubted something like money would ever become obsolete. Besides, even if it did, then it at least helped warm a fire. But the bank is guarded in the shinobi district. Rightfully so, I guess. What should I do now? Naruto thought to himself. After some time, Naruto decided to head back home. He didn't stay there for long. Instead, he grabbed some spare kunai, shuriken, and other shinobi tools before he headed back out. Naruto made sure to give Kurenai her medicine before he went back out. He'd have to find some more. Her vial was getting low. Luckily, he discovered a lot in his last outing. Anyway, Naruto found a secluded part of the village not too far from his home. For the next 3 hours, he trained his body. He threw kunai and shuriken and practiced the many techniques he had learned while he was in the academy. He trained hard. The images of Tsuki's body remained fresh in his mind. The corrupted air filled his lungs. Sweat poured down his face. Naruto wasn't sure how long he punched the side of a wall. He only saw the cracks he left in it. Tsuki, Kiba, Lee. How many others ended up like them? When he was done, Naruto took another breath. He was tired and he didn't feel like staying out anymore. However, he still had something he wished to try. It had been a few days since he had done this. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki clenched his fists. He knew this was going to hurt, but he was pretty damn determined. He relaxed his mind. He inhaled and exhaled. The young genin then called forth his chakra. Ah! Naruto screamed in pain as his body burned like it had been set on fire. Nevertheless, the young man had been expecting this. He slammed his hands together and forcefully pushed as hard as he could. Please, even a minuscule amount was enough. The pain would be worth it. Veins lined Naruto's arms, legs, and face. He felt like his body was being ripped into thousands of pieces. The veins glowed with an eerie, almost unnatural color that the Kyuubi Jinchuriki couldn't see. He closed his eyes from the sheer amounts of agony rushing through his body. His breathing felt short. His throat burned. His lungs felt like they might explode. His heart was gonna burst. Yet, he never stopped. He endured the pain. He endured the pressure. The gravel and dirt beneath his feet began to crack. Acid green energy poured out from his skin. Unlike normal chakra, this wasn't blue. This power. It hurt, but it felt like nothing he experienced before. His very body was feeding off the resonating new power in his chakra pathway system. The green chakra circled through his body. From the toes of his feet to the skull in his head, there was no place it didn't touch. It seeped into his bones, his muscles, his stomach, his heart, and any place it could reach. By the time it was done, Naruto wondered if he was going to die. Slowly, the Kyuubi Jinchuriki stopped. He fell to his knees. His hands kept him from falling into the dirt. Blood dripped from the side of his mouth and his entire body felt like crumbled dust. What was that? Naruto thought. While the blonde genin caught his breath, he slowly stood to his feet. Every inch of his body cried out in pain. He slowly limped back home. That's it. Change of plans. Tomorrow was a day off. Probably the next day after that as well, and a third day just to be on the safe side. By some miracle, Naruto made it back to his apartment. Perhaps he was in luck. The wind started to pick up. It wouldn't be long before another sandstorm reared its ugly head over the wasted lands. He stepped inside and quickly went into the bathroom. He stripped off his clothes and gave himself a bath. Like you can call a lukewarm water jug, a rag, and some soap a bath, the blonde said to himself. Once he was clean, he limped over to the living room. He didn't remember when he hit the couch. All he knew was that he had fallen asleep. His dreams were pleasant. The subtle movements of his body were not though. Every twitch was a great pain. After a few hours, Naruto was stirred awake by something brushing through his hair. He smelled something very nice, but he couldn't put his tired finger on it. He noticed how cold it was compared to before he fell asleep. It was severely cold. It was so cold he wondered if he needed extra blankets. The genin opened his eyes slowly. Despite being tired, his vision was perfectly clear. Though startled, he somehow managed to not let it show. He smiled. Glad you're awake, Ayame-ni-chan, Naruto said tiredly as he stared at the now awake ramen waitress who looked back at him in utter shock.